Hello everybody. Welcome. Welcome to the coolest English teaching channel on YouTube, maybe. And today we're going to learn how to learn vocabulary. So, if you think learning vocabulary is important, this is the lesson for you. This is my method for learning vocabulary, but of course I cannot take full credit. This method is informed by 15 years of experience teaching and reading and studying and learning from other teachers and learning from studies and academics and so on. I do this every time I have a problem, forget to turn on my microphone. Once again, we are going to learn about vocabulary today, but before we do, I want to say hello to all of our wonderful people in the chat. Hello to Lolly Lolly in France. Hello to Nipa Begum. Hello to Julia Khatar, Manuel Gordillo, Siri. Hello Pavia, good afternoon. How's everybody doing? I want to ask you a question to begin today's lesson. My question is, how important is learning vocabulary when you are learning a language? So the question is, how important is learning vocabulary when you are learning a language? Can you put your answer in the chat between 1 and 10? How important is vocabulary when learning a language? Julia says, I sent you a message. Where did you send me a message, Julia? On Skype, by email, or some other way? How did you send me a message? Zainab says too important. So remember, Zainab, in English, when you say too, that is always a negative excess. So when we say too, we use it for a bad thing, like it's too hot, or I'm too hungry to think. So we can't really say too important because important is a positive thing. Manuel says vocabulary is the spice of the language, and Ashley Chen says 7 out of 10. All right. Well, personally, I think that vocabulary is 10 out of 10. I think vocabulary is the most important thing. Absolutely the most important thing. I think there is nothing more important than vocabulary. In my opinion, vocabulary is the most important thing. So, my vocabulary method has a lovely acronym, SIMPLIFY. That's an acronym, SIMPLIFY. And we are going to talk about this today. First, we have select a phrase, selection, investigation, making notes, personalizing it, listening, imitating, focusing, and then review. The temperature in England right now is 27 degrees Celsius, which is extremely hot for England. And I'm melting. And now Manuel's going to laugh, but whatever. So, does anyone have any questions about the words on the screen before we begin? Right, Manuel. So Manuel says, research says we only use 5,000 words a year. So words are not the same as vocabulary. Words are a written unit of vocabulary. For example, the is a word, right? But when I say vocabulary, I don't necessarily mean words. I mean words together in a meaningful unit. So we're talking about phrases like, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go is a phrase. It has 4 words or 5 words with the contraction, but it's a phrase. I'm gonna go. That is a unit of meaningful language. It's a vocabulary unit. So we're talking more about phrases than words. Words are important sometimes, often for very specific things like a mug. This is a mug. Why is this a mug? Because a mug is a big cup. And a big cup is a phrase, a big cup. This is a big cup or a mug. So mug, that's one word, useful. But I'm gonna, that's one unit, that's several words, that's vocabulary. I'm gonna drink from my mug. Remember, everybody, smash that like button. Thank you, Julia, to remind me about that. Please do hit that like button. We are about to begin the lesson today. Let's talk. So I'm going to show you something, and let's see if anyone in the chat speaks ancient Greek. So I want you to look at the special symbol on the screen there, and I want you to tell me, what is that? Do you know what that is? Does anyone know that? It's a very ancient unit of meaning. Does anyone know what that is? Daisy Lee says, what's that? And then laughs. I'll give you 30 seconds for other people in the chat to give their opinion. What is this? Pure nope. Anouat, I have no clue. Frankly speaking, I have no clue. Lolly says, is it Picasso? I'm now going to blow your mind, and I'm going to add some information to the screen, and then you will see exactly what this is. Okay? I will add information. This information that I add, we can call context. I'm going to add context. Right now, you don't have context. You just have that symbol. And when I do this, you have context. Can you tell me now? What is that? It's one word. Fireworks. Yeah, maybe it looks a bit like that. Looks like a bean. It's a word. What word is it? If I tell you it's a word, can you tell me what word that is? Greatest story ever told. What's the word? Well done, Daisy Lee. The word is the. It's the word the. Now, it's very badly written, very difficult to read. Very difficult to read. But in context, we have a chance to guess it. This has no meaning. It's nothing. Now, we can understand, perhaps, it's the. So this is the importance of context. Context is extremely important. So you have the image, you have greatest story ever told, and then we have a line here, and all this context helps us to understand the word the. So this is just to tell you that context is critical, and when we look at things out of context, it's just meaningless. It's just meaningless. It has no meaning out of context. So we always need to see vocabulary in context. We must always look at vocabulary in context. So let's move on to the method for learning vocabulary. The first thing is to look at some context. So we're going to look at a little bit of information here about YouTube and language learning. First, I'll just read this. It's a short paragraph about YouTube and learning languages. I'll read it, and you listen for interesting words and vocabulary. Okay? YouTube offers a plethora of free resources for language acquisition, from grammar lessons and pronunciation guides to vocabulary builders. Learners have access to numerous channels catered to varying skill levels. That said, a significant downside is that the platform promotes entertainment over information. So when you look at this piece of language, this text, we can see I have selected some phrases in bold and underline. And let's imagine now you're looking at this information about language learning, and you want to learn some phrases from this. So look at this now and tell me what phrases are interesting to you. How do you decide what phrases to learn? You look at this, you go, oh, I don't know some of these words. Or maybe I do know them, but I don't use them. So I don't know all of these phrases. I don't use all these phrases. So how do you decide which phrases to learn? This is the first step in the method. It's called select. In Simplify, select. Select a phrase. So how do you select a phrase? That's the question. How do you choose what vocabulary to use? So Daisy Lee has said a plethora, and she says it's a useful phrase. How do you know it's a useful phrase? iPhobia says by frequency. So frequency means how common is the word? How common is the phrase? Like what you gonna do tomorrow? That's really common. So maybe we decide, oh, very, very common phrase. I must learn very, very common phrases. Yeah, Pavia likes the word plethora. And this is actually important that people are saying, I like this phrase. I like the word plethora. Kelly says some words I've never seen before. So Kelly is choosing based on new vocabulary, which means what you're doing, Kelly, is you're choosing words that you don't know in your passive vocabulary. So that's a way of improving your passive vocabulary. What about your active vocabulary? What about the phrases you know, but you don't use them? Anawat loves learning collocations. So, language acquisition. Anawat wants to learn. So, there are several considerations when deciding what phrase to learn. Here's a list. Okay? So, we said frequency. It's common. I like it. Like Anawat says, I love learning collocations. It's fancy. So I think Pavia likes fancy language. So maybe because it's fancy. It's easy to remember. And we can add one to that, which is Kelly said, I've never seen it before. So I want you to put these in order of importance, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'll give them all a letter to make it easy. So A, B, C, D, E. So type in the chat, what do you think is most important when deciding which words to learn? Which is most important for you when deciding which words to learn? Use the letters, just type the letters in order of what you think. So Daisy says CDBAE, which is fancy, easy to remember. I like it, it's common, and finally, I've never seen it. Hello, Pallavi, nice to see you. Lolly Lolly says E, I've never seen it before. So again, Lolly Lolly, you're focusing on passive vocabulary by doing that. That means you are selecting for understanding rather than production. Remember that when you want to improve your spoken or active vocabulary, it doesn't matter if you understand the phrase. The question is, do you use it? And if you don't use it, but you understand it, maybe you want to use it. And it can be very powerful, actually, to try to use vocabulary that you understand, but you didn't use before. Oh, Amali, hello. That is a pretty good one. I quite like that. So there is no right or wrong answer here. However, I will tell you my professional opinion of the most effective. The most effective is B first, then D, then A, then E, then C, and then E. So the most effective is first, if you like it. Ooh, I like that. That's brilliant. If you see a phrase and you like it, it's so easy to learn. Nanda korewa. I only heard Nanda korewa once, and I never forgot it. Nanda korewa. Right. So if you like it, really good. It's easy to remember. This is connected to B. If you like it, then it's probably easy to remember. Then it's common. I mean, that's an important consideration. Maybe you like the word supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, but it's not very common. So you could learn it for fun, but maybe it's not as useful as other words. And then we've got the other ones. So this is selection. This is how you select your words. So now that we know that, we go back. Which phrases here do you like? Look at the bold phrases and the underlined phrases. Which do you like? That's the most important thing. Which phrase do you like? Yeah, we've got plethora. So I think a few people will like plethora. And that's interesting, isn't it? Plethora, maybe not the most common vocabulary in the world. However, it is the one I chose. Now, you can choose whichever you want. You choose the phrase that you like, not the individual word, but the phrase. So choose a phrase that you like. Okay? So now we move on to I. We've done S, now I. You need to investigate it. The question is, how do you check the meaning, use, and pronunciation of the phrase? Like, what does this phrase mean? How do I check how people use this? I like it. I want to learn it. So what can I do to check how people use it? So we're going to think about that. We've got dictionary. There is also a question here, which is, when we learn a phrase, there's several things we need to learn. And there is a question of, what do you think is the most important in what we learn, right? So in the dictionary, we can learn the form and the meaning and some use. But we don't really learn the pronunciation. You can learn the phonemics a little, but still we don't learn it that well. So the different places can teach us different things about the phrase. What do you think's most important? Pronunciation, form, meaning, or use? What's the most important? 10 seconds. When you're learning a new phrase, what's the most important? I agree that use is really important, but that's not what I would say. I would say the most important is meaning. What does it mean? We need to know something about meaning. And then that's closely followed by use. In fact, meaning and use are very heavily connected. So meaning and use, really important. Then pronunciation, then form. Form is the least important. However, form is important for exams. And also, if you want to sound professional, you need good grammar, good form. But it is the least important out of these four things. Meaning, use, pronunciation are more important. And then form. Form is important, right? Like if I say a plethora, we have a plethora of, let me think. We have a plethora of person here. Well, the form is wrong because we need a plural noun. So this doesn't sound correct. The form is wrong. However, the meaning is okay, really. Right? I can understand that. You know, or if I say we have a plethora from books in the library. The form is wrong. Again, the form is incorrect, but the meaning's okay. So, yeah, form is important, but it's not as important as pronunciation, use, and meaning is the most important. So let's talk about places to investigate your phrase. We had dictionary. Okay, dictionary. Dictionary's okay. It's a bit old, though. We don't need dictionary anymore. There's other things. Hello, Riadal. How are you doing? So, does anyone know any apps or websites for investigating vocabulary? That's investigating the meaning, the pronunciation. The thing is, Pavia, the reason you're dead set against that idea is because your meaning and pronunciation are very strong. And so at this stage, it makes sense for you to focus on form. However, for a lot of people, that doesn't make sense. Meaning has to come first. It's learning form before meaning is a 1900s method called grammar translation method. And you don't say a word until you have perfect form. So you learn the perfect form of English, and then you learn the meaning, and then you learn the pronunciation, and then you can speak. So with grammar translation, you study for 5 years in a monastery or in a university. Study, and then after 5 years, you may speak the language a little, right? That's the form first method, but it takes a long time. It's good for academics. It's terrible for most people. Oh, okay, just the third and fourth in the order. Pronunciation's really important, though. If I don't understand what someone's saying, then see, if someone has good pronunciation but bad form, I can understand them. But if they have bad pronunciation and good form, I can't understand them. So I need pronunciations. It's important that I can understand them. If you're talking about writing, Obviously, with writing, you just eliminate pronunciation because there is no pronunciation in writing. So obviously, form is more important than pronunciation for writing. But for speaking, pronunciation is more important, in my opinion. Right. Okay. So does anyone have any suggestions for investigation here? As long as I can understand new words are not an issue for me, I'll go around meanings used. So it's interesting. Anawat, you mentioned Youglish. Fantastic. That's what I wanted. So Youglish is a brilliant place to learn meaning and pronunciation and use and form if you analyze it. So you can learn everything from Youglish. So Youglish is a brilliant resource. Thank you, Anawat, for suggesting Youglish. I do have a video on Youglish on my channel on how to use it. I suggest checking that out. It's called The Best English Learning App or something like that. Check that. A sentence filled with grammatical mistakes gives me a headache. Yeah, that's good, Daisy. That means that your English is good. When grammar mistakes give you a headache, it means that your English is good. So excellent. Form is important. I don't want to have a fight with form people, okay? Obviously, form's important. People want to speak with correct form. Okay, so let me tell you some other resources. You have this. Has anyone used this? DeepL. So DeepL is a really cool translation dictionary, which the important thing about DeepL is it shows you real use of the word. The real use. So you actually see how the word is used on websites. So I really like DeepL. Also, ChatGPT. Explain the meaning of a plethora of and how it's used to a beginner of English. That's a pretty cool way of getting the meaning these days. And you notice ChatGPT also has given some examples here. It says the festival had a plethora of food stalls with cuisine from around the world. Really cool. And then Google Images. Now, for this particular phrase, a plethora of, Google Images is not so useful, but it does help reinforce our idea of a plethora. So a plethora of means a wide range, lots of different ones, a large amount, an excessively positive amount, normally. Can you give us the link for what? Youglish or DeepL? With most of these things, you just search Google for like DeepL, and you get it. But okay. So 1 second. All right, so DeepL's there in the chat. Youglish is just youglish.com. ChatGPT is openai.com/blog/ChatGPT. That's in the chat as well. And Google Images, you know that. Pallavi, there was no other stream today, only Professor Rich. On Oxford Online English, we only stream 3 times a month. That's Ollie's decision. So, you know. So that's the end of investigate. Let's say we understand the meaning. We know how it's used. Now we want to make notes. So do you make vocabulary notes in the chat? Do you make vocabulary notes, and how do you make them? What do you write? What do your vocabulary notes look like? That's an important question. So here I've put a very common way to make vocabulary notes, which is a word-to-word translation. And it's not so exciting, in my opinion. Pallavi, ChatGPT is often not correct, but it's not accuracy that makes ChatGPT interesting. I've said it many times. ChatGPT is a creative tool. It's not Mr. Logic. It's not a dictionary, an encyclopedia. It's a content generation tool. Really useful. So Anawat said, I write word definition, an example from the dictionary, and my own example. That's a lot. You write a lot. Daisy says, I draw in order to remember the word. I think drawing can be really powerful because drawing is a type of personalization. Personalization is the next step. So Kelly used to use translation, but she doesn't like that now. So let me show you some other ones here. So here's some other options for vocabulary, for notes. Plethora. That's Spanish. Then we've got the phrase, a plethora of something. And a definition, a large, often excessive amount. Number 3, we have a plethora of something. And then we have, what's that? A personal example. Do you use these techniques? Which do you think is the best? I want to show you some pictures of vocabulary notes from my students over the years. You can also just see the different styles and ways of making vocabulary notes. We can see here some personalization, and we can see some synonyms, lots of use of synonyms, and also translation. Excite, stimulate, inspire, give joy to, delight, give pleasure. And we can see here, this one's quite fun. This is a Japanese student. And she's put the word cross, annoyed or angry. And then she's got, what's his face from Dragon Ball Z or whatever. So a bit of personalization going on there. Kind of fun stuff. All right. So making notes, you can get very creative. Let's see what Pavia says. I write the words down, then I'll go for meanings. And after gathering about 10 words, I'll make a large sentence using all those words. Thus my language will become sesquipedalian. Okay. You win. You win, Pavia. Okay, next. Sesquipedalian. Right. My only issue with that, I don't want to criticize Pavia's methods too much. My only issue with that is that you are synthetically creating a sentence with specific pieces of vocabulary, which might lead to rather peculiar sentences made as kind of a bunch of uncommon language chunks pieced together. But, okay, moving on. Personalize it. So this is obviously the most important step in language learning, or not the most important, but the key step that people miss a lot and is so powerful. Personalize it. There are many ways to personalize vocabulary. One way is what Pavia just said. Another way is what Daisy said about drawing pictures. If you draw a picture, that is a way of personalizing vocabulary. And here's my standard way, which is to write 3 sentences and use the phrase once. It can be an imaginary or real situation. And here's an example. I always teach my students that there are a plethora of ways to learn languages. That said, some ways are better than others. That's only 2 sentences, so I've failed my own method. Juicy language. Yes, right. Juice it up. I use different colored pencils to write notes so I can easily memorize them. Yes, Sanawat, that's a good method. And I have some examples of my students using that also. Anything that can highlight and make it creative and personalize the vocabulary will help you to remember. It's all about engaging emotion. And in language teaching, we call this affective depth, which is with an A. Affective depth. Now, affective depth is an academic way of saying how emotional you feel about the phrase. That's affective depth. So when we do personalization and drawing and creativity, we're just trying to increase the affective depth. We just want you to feel more about it. That's why I said before, one of the most important things in selecting a phrase, is choosing a phrase that you like. Because a phrase that you like already has affective depth. And affective depth is just great for learning vocabulary. Pallavi says, first I write a word and then I see its translation and meaning in my language. Then I try to make a sentence in English. So Pallavi, that's not bad because you try to make a sentence. But I think that your investigate step, right, which is this step, I think you could improve your investigation because translation is often not memorable and can be incorrect. So I recommend that you experiment with Youglish and DeepL and Google Images. And you can use these ways of discovering meaning, which can be more effective than translation. Okay? So try using different ways to investigate the meaning. That's my recommendation, Pallavi. So then we move on to pronunciation, getting the pronunciation. We've got listen to it and imitate the sounds. Now I'm overloading you and confusing you with instructions. So let's stop. So this is sometimes called shadowing. It's Prof. Rich version shadowing. And the important thing here is the pause and remembering the sounds. So I will show you this method. This is about learning pronunciation. Okay? So you listen to the phrase. Then you replay the phrase in your head. So you listen to the memory of the phrase. Replay it, replay it, replay it, replay it in your head. Don't say it. And then, after 5 seconds, you say it. Okay? So, let's try this. If you can speak where you are, then do this with me. So first, listen. The library had a plethora of books. Okay? So that, when you say it, when I do that, then you say it. So I'll try it again. The library had a plethora of books. The library had a plethora of books. Right. Oh, Riadol. You're going back to investigate meaning. So a plethora means a great amount. And it's often used in a positive way. Can be used negatively. But these days it's normally used in a positive way. It means a great amount. A plethora. A really large, lots and lots and lots. Okay, it's a plethora. So that's my method for pronunciation. And it's really important that you listen, stop, and repeat the phrase in your head. 1, 2, 3, and then say it. This is really good for your pronunciation. And remember also, you want to focus on the sounds, not on the words. Forget the words, just focus on the sounds. Focus on the sounds. Okay, I'm being asked about doing the special zoom camera. Give me a second. Let me try this. Where is my video source? Seem to be having some problems doing that, actually. Video capture device, that's it. Do that. There we go. And then, how do we transform? Need to clip it. It's not going to work. All right, screw it. Are you ready? One moment. Aha, there we go. Okay, let's try that again. I'm going to say the phrase. You listen, then replay in your head, and then say it. Okay? In the library, there are a plethora of books. In the library, there are a plethora of books. Okay, did you get it? So that is the full Prof. Rich TM shadowing. How to learn pronunciation with Prof. Rich shadowing. Okay. Kashata says, hello, Prof. Rich. I'm very late today. I just came from work. I'm sorry to hear that, Kashata. So that's the L and the I, which is listen and imitate. Then we move on to focus on using it. So what does that mean, focus on using it? Well, focus on using it means you have your phrase, you've made a note, you've investigated the meaning, you've practiced pronunciation, and now just use it. Go talk to people. And when you have an opportunity to say a load of stuff, then you say a plethora of instead, right? What have you got to drink? Oh, we've got a plethora of options, right? What's your favourite video game? Well, to be honest, there's a plethora of games that I could consider my favourite. Yes. What's the most important piece of advice for learning languages, Professor Rich? Oh, there's a plethora of things to say about that. A real plethora. Okay, so focus on using it. Finally, we need some reflection. So reflection is important with any method. You need to reflect because you need to determine, did this work? Am I using it? Think about this right now with your vocabulary learning method. Is it working? Are you actually using new phrases when you speak? And do they sound natural? So after a few weeks, you check back on your notes. Are you using the phrase? And if not, personalize it again or dump it. Do not be afraid to dump it. Don't keep bashing your head against a phrase that you just can't learn. At some stage, dump it, go another way. Okay? It's all about finding the phrases you enjoy, you like, you have good effective depth. So iPhobia talked about learning the IPA. So that's another way of doing pronunciation, okay? The method I've put here is Prof. Rich shadowing, Prof. Rich TM shadowing. But actually it's this, to be honest, this is inspired by a teacher of mine, teacher trainer, called Tommy Delabodier. Tommy DLB, we called him. And he worked in Hanoi, Vietnam, the British Council. So thank you, Tommy. If you ever see this, he trained me on effective pronunciation teaching. It was really, really good training. Thank you, Tommy. So it's his method, really. But anyway, we're going to call it Prof. Rich shadowing. And it's great. However, learning the IPA can also be useful, not so much for phrases, but it can be useful for improving your accent and for determining which sounds you find most difficult. So, yeah, I don't call it the IPA, by the way. What I want to say is the British Phonemic Chart. That's the way to learn sounds if you want to learn it. The IPA is every sound in every language. We don't need that. Just the British Phonemic Chart. You can find lots of stuff online about that. So that actually is the full method. The method simplify. We select a phrase, investigate it, make notes, personalize it, listen to it, imitate the sounds, focus on using it, and then you review, reflect, and reassess. So that is my full method for learning vocabulary. I would love to hear your thoughts on that. And actually, I would really like you to try it. Try the whole method, and then tell me what you think. If you think it doesn't work, tell me. Come back and say, no, it's too long, too complicated, too boring, doesn't work. I want to know if this works for you and if it's effective. And what I would really like, and this is your homework for today. So homework for today. Use the method to learn 3 new phrases. Send me your vocabulary notes. Send me photos of your vocabulary notes and record yourself using the phrase. Okay? So that is your homework for today. And you can send that homework to professorrich@gmail.com. That's my business email. So would love to hear you trying this method and also to your thoughts. Great. And here are the notes from today. Let me just check that. Yes, that's good. Okay, so you can download the notes from today. Right now, I'll put those also in the chat down below, in the notes down below. And if you do the homework, you probably will need actually to download the notes so you can follow the method. Please do join our English Learner chat on Skype. That's a text chat group on Skype. It's our community right now. If we get a really big community, then I'll set up a Discord server or something. But for the moment, we're using Skype as the main point of contact. Also, today, we have the first conversation club in, how long, Manuel? About 8 months. I think it's been about 8 months since the last conversation club that I ran. So we're starting again today, and I would like to see people there. First session going to be a little bit exciting because I haven't done level tests, and I have no idea what level everyone will be. But I'm a professional and I will manage that. So if you wish to join our conversation class, then you can do that on Zoom. And I will put the Zoom information in the chat right now. So you can use that link, and you'll need Zoom and you will need a headset. And we will not be talking as one group, but we'll be talking in smaller groups, and then we'll discuss our ideas as a group, depending on how many people comes, and that will start in 10 minutes. So you have now 10 minutes to ask me questions about today. Does anyone have any questions about our class today? Rand says, hi, Teacher Rich, I'm so happy to join you. Well, thank you, Rand. Nice to see you. Shibi says, just to reconfirm, a figure of speech, is it used in normal conversation, not only in poems? I ask because I've been thinking all along it's only using poems. What, figure of speech? Yeah, of course. Yeah. I'm dying of hunger. Well, it's just a figure of speech. Not really dying of hunger. Okay. Well, we need to talk about the elephant in the room. What elephant? No. It's just a figure of speech, not the actual elephant. I just mean the thing that nobody is talking about. Smash that like button, everybody. Hit subscribe and all that stuff. Daisy, that is worrying. So don't send private messages to people. And please make sure that you have your Skype set so people can't send you private messages. Also, please use your YouTube name in Skype so we know who you are. Otherwise, we'll just think that you're some crazy person. Daisy, by the way, I receive weird messages on Skype all the time. And that's happened for years. Like just random messages from all kinds of people. So I'm always very careful before I click the accept button on messages. So we are going to finish in a moment. Can you explain the difference between phonetics and phonology? Of course. So it's phonology is the study of spoken sounds. Phonetics is every possible sound the mouth can make in any language. And phonemics is the group of sounds from a specific language. So there you go. Do we need to use YouTube names in the Zoom class? You can either use YouTube name or your real name. It's your choice. If you want to use your YouTube name, it's okay. If you want to use your real name, that's okay. But no new names, please. So Pure Care, if your name is Dave, you can be Dave in the Zoom call, but don't show up as Dragon Crash 59. Because if I don't know who you are, then maybe I don't let you in the Zoom call. Yeah, no guest names. No guest names. It's a class, everybody. It's a private class. And yeah, no guest names. I do prefer use of camera, but if you don't want to use a camera, that's okay. And if anyone says anything weird that you don't like, message me immediately on Zoom or Skype, and I will take care of it, just like in class. Sometimes that happens. In class, sometimes somebody says something weird, and the teacher has to control the situation. That's part of our job as teachers, is to ensure that class is a safe and comfortable environment. That's the same for online classes and in-person classes, especially now, because now I teach refugees and asylum seekers in person. Pavia says, I want to answer the question. What question? People think about asking, do enlighten me about the current state of your being. How fair is your resistance on this fine day? Yeah, it's fine. Just kind of funny, isn't it? Last chance for questions. Yeah, I understand, Riadol. I mean, it was a kind of a weird decision of me to use a Skype group, but I thought about it a lot, and I thought maybe Discord server costs a lot of money, and I can't justify that yet. Online forum is a bit static. WhatsApp group, well, people have to give their phone numbers, and not everyone wants to have their phone numbers in this public group. So Skype was just the best option for now, because I know a lot of my students do use Skype, and Skype is commonly used still in business and so on. So at the moment, we're between Skype and Zoom and YouTube. In the future, I would like to move to either Google, because Google are creating a new product, new workspace, and they are renovating Google Meet and things like that, so that could be good. Or I will create a Discord server. And Discord servers are really great, but that costs money. Right, okay, I'm going to take a break. I'm going to take a break for a couple of minutes. And if you're joining Conversation Club, I'll see you there. Thank you very much for watching, everybody. It's been my pleasure. My name is Teacher Rich. As always, this is the Rockstar Language Learning Channel. Smash that like button, hit subscribe. I will see you next week, same time. Thank you very much. I'll see you in a bit.